Good evening and welcome to Ndukwa FM Radio. Reaching you live from our mini studio right here in the Garden City of Port Harcourt. I'm Loretta Egbe, aka Islora, and you're onto the program Security Watch. And on the program this evening, we'll be talking about the role of the Tantitan Security Services in respect to the mainstay of our economy, which is oil and gas. Our guest for today is no other than one of our own, the People's Crusader, an activist and a social commentator, Comrade Okuzo Chuba. You're welcome to the show.
Thank you once again. Thank you for having me. It's really a privilege.
You're welcome once again. Without much ado, we're going straight to the discourse of today. And I'll be asking you some questions though. And the first question I'll be asking you here is, how would you rate the activities of the Tantita Security Services on a scale of 1 to 10?
If I say 10, I think some people will feel kind of vexed or have their reservations, but very fairly, I would say I rate them at a scale of 8 or 9 because whether I like it or yes, our activities so far cannot be overemphasized. And very obviously, I think 8, 9 for me will not be out of place, knowing where we're coming from as a people.
All right, that's nice. Okay. Can you throw some lights on the possible benefits and achievements of the Tantita Security Services with respect to the very high scorecard you have given it?
In fairness to you, I would say that the benefits of the Tantita Security Services will be best emphasized or best narrated by either the NNPCL or the federal government herself. Because what I would like it to hear is before Tantita Security Services were contracted to do the needful, we realized or we knew where the Nigerian mainstay was. We could barely meet up our OPEC quota, were little or nowhere. And as a matter of fact, the revelations that have emanated from the activities of the security services cannot be overemphasized. And if we want to be well-meaningful Nigerians, we'll not only just applaud them, but we'll be very much grateful and possibly indebted if we want to be fair. Okay. Because by this time, I think if not for the activities and the advent, trust me, our economy would have been grounded to a halt by now. So I think, without mixing words, the benefits they are far too overwhelming and overreaching that we cannot pretend that everyone that wants to know can observe them and can even feel them. Because I would like it to yes, you realize where we were as a people before the commencement of the Tantita Security Services. And I think where we are today, it's a far cry from where we're coming from and must be applauded by all sundry.
All right, you do have a point there, but there's something that has bogged my mind for a while now, considering the current state of civilization. With regards to that, I'm going to ask you this. With the world being cautious of the ecosystem, do you think that the modus operandi of the Tantita Security Services is crude, barbaric, and should be condemned by all?
Trust me, this is not the first time I'm responding to this particular question. I've done this in many forums, and some of them on stage. Should be told, desperate measures require desperate processes.
Okay.
We are in a time where, whether we like it or not, we are being stifled or held on our jugulars. And as a people, so much has to be done. Now I know where you're heading, and I would help you so that you don't stress yourself. That's why I think I am here. The truth cannot be overemphasized. I remember that with what you're asking now, you're looking at the event that took place between General Warendi's arrest and most of the burning of the vessels and all of that.
Yeah,
now let's call a spade a spade. For those who cannot recall or who are not aware, for the records, I know about a month or two ago, the entire media space was awash with the activity of the Tantita Security destroying a vessel with over 800 million liters of crude and all of that.
Yeah, that's right.
People don't know what I'm about to share with you, and I want to tell you so that you understand. The ecosystem had always been polluted by multinationals who have been doing business in this country for many years, if not more than 100 for now. And now, if in all of this, we're still flare gases on a daily basis, these multinationals flare gases. And now we have been flaring gases, and there is no law, and there is no action by government or any agency of it, of us, to work towards stopping these multinationals from flaring gases. And in the course of their activities, our waterways, our aquatic life has been polluted over and over again. In the midst of all of this, we have not looked at all of this as the major issue. We are now looking at the Titan that was saddled with the responsibility to not just protect the oil and gas pipelines, are either more powerful than the Nigerian people
Okay.
or powerful than the Tantita security services outside they want to leave the shores of the Nigerian waterways. Upon that strength, they realized that sending a signal to whoever is getting involved in this kind of nefarious business must understand that you stand the chances of not just losing the product, not just your crews being apprehended, but
Okay.
equally losing the vessel. You can imagine the cost of a vessel. Not everybody wants to venture into that business going forward. So
That's true.
now that flaring, nobody applauds it. But this is a desperate measure that the International Security Services are faced with. Now we are in a country where the Interpol gave us a tip off of persons that were supposed sponsors of terrorism in this country.
Mhm.
And the government of the day came up with an excuse saying that they are not going to shame them in public land. The
Yeah.
same vein, in less than 2 months, the International Security Services came out with humongous revelations of crimes against the Nigerian state and the Nigerian populace,
Mm.
upon which this accrued had been siphoned for years, a minimum of nothing less than 10 years from the Focado's terminal.
Mhm.
Very clearing, a shocker to everyone that was involved. And
Okay.
upon that finding, the Tactical Security Services scaled up with companies that were connected with these crimes, with this stealing of our national patrimony. Upon this knowledge, Statistical Security filed up all the names of these companies, made this information known to the Nigerian people, but the companies, he gave back this information to the Nigerian government.
Mhm.
Up until today, what happened to those companies and the directors? Nothing happened to them. That file has been possibly forgotten. So the Statistical Security understands that it's fighting against an humongous crime and a cartel that is too large for us to just throw down the push aside to say they possibly don't exist. They do exist. And what I would like you to yes, they are seemingly stronger than the Nigerian people.
Mm.
So upon this information, the Statistical Security Services had said, when General Warren spoke on live on camera, he said to Captain Warren, he said to the world, he said, we are sending this as a deterrent to everyone that wants to get involved in this business. Because I can assure you that even if you are the owner of the vessel, when that vessel is destroyed, you know what you've lost. If
That's
the vessel
true.
was hired, you know the kind of problem you're going to get involved
Mm.
in. So I definitely do believe that this will stand as a curbing mechanism. And
Okay.
so I think, for without minusing words, we understand the pains of the Nigerian people. We understand what the burning of these products will do to our aquatic lives. We understand what is happening to the ecosystem, but we are trying to apply desperate measures at a desperate time that we find ourselves.
Oh, thank you very much, sir, for that. I would like to ask, the people would like to have your opinion on the bottlenecks that the leadership of the Tantita Security Services are more often complained about.
Before this question you asked, I think the last question, from the last question you asked, the bottlenecks cannot be emphasized. We could fetch the bottlenecks from the last explanations I gave, but I will equally reiterate. The bottlenecks are obvious. We either have a government that does not have the political willpower to stand by the contract she chose to sign with the Tactical Security Services.
Okay.
She doesn't believe, or she never believed or expected that Tactical Security Services could be able to carry out the job they gave them to carry out. The task was among us, so to speak.
Okay.
We all understand the contract clause before the Tactical Security Services got involved. We knew what the contract sum used to be when it was given to other security services as guided by the Nigerian government. But in all of this, it is obvious that we are having naysayers, paid rascals who come online or who come to go to public space to ensure that they do all they can to see how they can malign the integrity of the company. And upon that strength, too, we realize that very high power brokers are involved in oil thefts. Like
That's right.
the general clearly told us before, he said, the high chief told us, he said, this oil theft is not what young Nigerians could do. It goes beyond what they call the locals call profile. It goes beyond. That's like a
Okay.
spoon from the ocean. From the foundings of the transitional security services have given out to the world lately, we all realize that the humongous theft is goes beyond people just raising little camps here and there. So, without mincing words or trying to be overemphasize a reality, we are looking at the bottlenecks from the point of the political willpower, lack of political willpower for government to pull through what has to be done.
Okay.
We're looking at the possible sabotage of the security apparatus of the country upon where we know that people consciously want to sabotage. Like you rightly remember, 3 weeks ago, the vessel that was apprehended, the 800 liters vessel, 800,000 liter vessel that was apprehended, the persons that were manning that vessel were naval officers. And a captain was inside that vessel as well. These are officers of the Nigerian government. And you find out that because of this type of things, it is not easy, knowing too well that the IC it's not a pleasurable place to just go and suffer or go and say you're going to sit down and just keep waiting for tips to run through. And somebody sabotaging the nation, obviously, and nobody, there are no consequences for bad habits or bad attitudes. Because when a vessel gets into your waterways, there's a trigger, there's a signal that just places words or trying to be overemphasize a reality. We are looking at the bottlenecks from the point of the political willpower, lack of political willpower for government to pull through what has to be done.
Okay.
We're looking at the possible sabotage of the security apparatus of the country upon where we know that people consciously want to sabotage. Like you rightly remember, 3 weeks ago, the vessel that was apprehended, the 800 liters vessel, 800,000 liter vessel that was apprehended, the persons that were manning that vessel were naval officers. And a captain was inside that vessel as well. These are officers of the Nigerian government. And you find out that because of this type of things, it is not easy, knowing too well that the IC it's not a pleasurable place to just go and suffer or go and say you're going to sit down and just keep waiting for tips to run through. And somebody sabotaging the nation, obviously, and nobody, there are no consequences for bad habits or bad attitudes. Because when a vessel gets into your waterways, there's a trigger, there's a signal that just lets the people understand that there's a vessel getting into our waterways. But yet this vessel gets into our waterways, load up products, and they still get out. So somebody is not doing his job and somebody is not getting punished for not doing his job. So all of these put together, I think for me, always and always will keep uploading transitional security services. Because the bottlenecks are much, but in the midst of all of this, giving their all, I think the results are obvious.
Nice one there. Yesterday, there's an information on the Punch newspaper talking about the Tantita network probably going to be suspended. So I want to ask about this recent Punch newspaper reports that the government is yet to renew the contract or possibly terminate the services of the Tantita security services. What are your takes on this?
I will not be politically correct
Okay.
on this matter. I'll be very emphatic and straight because you asked my opinion. It's completely and entirely my opinion, and I would say that before now, very early in 2021, we saw the tension in River State. Let's use River State, Port Harcourt, Garden City as a case study. Tension there when the immediate past governor bring out a riot to oil thefts and illegal refiners of crude. And you saw the tension that emanated. But I can tell you for free now that Antitan Security Service had been able to co-opt every young man, every young woman, while passion or an interest, believing that the illegal refining of oil or crude was the only pathway to go. And we could see a relative peace in our waterways, in the hinterlands. I mean, these things are obviously what they are. And no doubt we can equally make reference, because you walk from the known to the unknown, you can equally make reference or inferences to how the security structure has been before this time. So I think any attempt not to renew the contract might be spelling doom for the Nigerian economy and the Nigerian state for many reasons. There are too many young people who have already been co-opted and are beginning to think in the right direction, believing that they could earn a living, being warlords for their communities. Because trust me, when this contract was signed, I was on different forums, on different stations, and I made people understand that when the tension was coming up, of videos, people making statements, you cannot be in one place and come and dictate for me what happens in my place and all. And I told them that I believed in the leadership of the Data Security Services
Okay.
because they had gotten antecedents. We saw how the amnesty program went in 2009.
Yeah.
We saw leadership
Yeah.
at an all class level that was not normal. And I think I banked on those experiences to believe that they're going to be a galvanizing factor how these issues are going to be managed.
Okay.
And going forward, I think very seriously that the government knows all of this, and the advisors of the government equally know the implications of all of this. And most importantly, too, we know where the economy is now, and we know where it was before that Data Security Services were co-opted. So any attempt to do otherwise, not to renew this contract under any guise, because it's not going to be more than political reasons.
That's right.
And trust me, if it is done, I do not think it's going to be in the best interest of the Nigerian people, the Nigerian state, and even the multinationals. So I think all hands should be on deck, and everybody should equally canvass for what is right and support the system. I think that's the best part to follow.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Chuba. Don't you think that the then petition of the Isoko youth groups through Stanley Okoma, with the recent romance between the federal government and Chief Alhaji Asari Dokubo, could be one of the reasons why the federal government could be dragging a feet on the Tantita contract?
Trust me, it will always be laughable. When I saw the punch release, when I read through it, it's laughable because the Data Security Services came out with an modus operandi that I think is not normal, but it is working. Trust me when I say it is working.
Okay.
Virtually every community that hosted or hosts this multinationals, the pipelines, the oil installations were part and parcel of the security service. You cannot, in good conscience, if you know the Data Security Services and how it functions, to say some persons come out, not everybody can be carried along in any dispensation.
That's right.
Today we have a president, though embattled, but we know that there are people who are applauding the process because one reason is that they're involved in one thing or the other. But what I would like you to hear is, I think an even spread, if we want to be fair, has been observed. From the Isoko axis, you have a General Ashaka and a General Mamuzu Gabriel, popularly called General Angel, who are working closely with the leadership of the Data Security Services. These people have real great stake. I know them personally, so they have real great stake in all of this, and they are from the Isoko extraction. So I think anybody who has a grievance or who has a question to ask should be able to connect with his own community or his people. That I think when this whole process is commenced, the leadership clearly told the world, you need to go back to your community, you need to interface, you need to get connected. There are people who are point persons, and these are focal personnel upon which they're going to function and work with. And if that is what it is, trust me, I think if anybody feels funny, what I expected to see on the point was to say, I tried to assess General Shaka, tried to assess General Mamuzo, and it turned me down, what have you. And possibly that would have been one thing I think that the Data Security Service leadership would have wanted to look at, because they felt that personnel were not doing enough. But when you talk about trying to assess the leadership directly and make a point and malign someone's personality to get there, I think it won't really fly. But talking about General Asari, Chief Asari Dokubo, the truth remains that I feel disturbed, I feel embarrassed, because it's not just anybody, he's a stakeholder in this struggle, because we know where this struggle started from. We have an idea to a large extent, and we expect that support is what we needed, or we need at this point in time, from the region. We don't need to eat up the region for anybody's personal gains or personal good. And I think that the federal government, in our own wisdom, is wise enough to know what is necessary, what is needful. It's not anybody could want to desire a contract, but capacity to make it, to pull it through, is most important. Like I would always say, when I listen to the Malitian Tigers and when they speak, or when you go to read about them, they let you understand that competence, capacity goes beyond personality at any point in time when people want to be hired for a job. And so far so good. I think we can only build on what is right. We will not be thinking of trying to test something else on any grounds, under any support system or what have you. So for me, I think I don't want to see those as the being. So, to be candid with you, I am not of the opinion that federal government is holding back on the contract clauses on grounds of any of these options you just raised. I believe the federal government knows better. The results speak for themselves. Like the lawyers will say, the facts speak for themselves.
Yeah.
And the facts so far on ground is that from where we're coming from and where we are today, that Social Security Services has done so much respect to the uplifting of our economic mainstay.
Okay.
And upon that strength, I do not think either of these options that you raised would really matter.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chuba, for that. Finally, I'm going to be asking you, what's your advice to both the federal government and the people of the Niger Delta region?
Very clearly, my advice to the federal government is the federal government knows what to be done. They know that they have to do the needful, and the needful is the fact that the contract needs to be signed. Nothing out less than that. Because anything less than that, I think we'll be going back to possibly the dark days. Because the capacity of where and the people managing the contract today cannot be emphasized. The NPC has made it to understand what we are accruing now into our coffers. There are terminals that have never been able to produce for the past 10 years, but we know they're producing now. And I don't think we want to renege on that.
Okay.
Talking about the Niger Delta people, I would want to say very categorically and straight up to everyone that is involved in any form of racketeering, political maligning of any sort on the integrity of the leadership of the Advanced Credit Services should desist from it forthwith. Nobody has a monopoly of anything, and the actions people take or put up in Abuja or even in Port Harcourt or Warri or Bayelsa, as the case may be, these are just for me stunts, and they could go little or nowhere. Capacity goes beyond a person, and like I've said, and I would like to equally reiterate. Like I initially stated, I think the advice of the federal government is simple. Any attempt to renege on the contract might not be too good for the economy and the region as a whole. So I think it is necessary that the federal government does the needful. In respect to the Niger Delta people, it's imperative for us to remain as one, do the needful, support the process, a program that we all have seen results and have for once been applauded by all as sundry. Any attempt of anything to the Malitian tigers, and when you speak or when you go to read about them, they let you understand that competence, capacity goes beyond personality at any point in time when people want to be hired for a job. And so far so good, I think we can only build on what is right. We will not be thinking of trying to test something else on any grounds, under any support system or what have you. So for me, I think I don't want to see those as the being. So, to be candid with you, I am not of the opinion that federal government is holding back on the contract clauses on grounds of any of these options you just raised. I believe the federal government knows better. The results speak for themselves. Like the lawyers will say, the facts speak for themselves.
Yeah.
And the facts so far on ground is that from where we're coming from and where we are today, that Social Security Services has done so much respect to the uplifting of our economic mainstay.
Okay.
And upon that strength, I do not think either of these options that you raised would really matter.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chuba, for that. Finally, I'm going to be asking you, what's your advice to both the federal government and the people of the Niger Delta region?
Very clearly, my advice to the federal government is the federal government knows what to be done. They know that they have to do the needful, and the needful is the fact that the contract needs to be signed. Nothing out less than that. Because anything less than that, I think we'll be going back to possibly the dark days. Because the capacity of where and the people managing the contract today cannot be emphasized. The NPC has made it to understand what we are accruing now into our coffers. There are terminals that have never been able to produce for the past 10 years, but we know they're producing now. And I don't think we want to renege on that.
Okay.
Talking about the Niger Delta people, I would want to say very categorically and straight up to everyone that is involved in any form of racketeering, political maligning
Mm.
of any sort on the integrity of the leadership of the advanced security services should desist from it forthwith. Nobody has a monopoly of anything, and the actions
That's
people
right.
take or make or put up in Abuja or even in Port Harcourt or
Mm.
Warri or Bayelsa, as the case may be, these are just for me stunts, and they go little or nowhere. Capacity goes beyond a person, and like I've said, and I would like to equally reiterate, like I initially stated, I think the advice of the federal government is simple. Any attempt to renege on the contract might not be too good for the economy and the region as a whole. So I think it is necessary that the federal government does the needful. With respect to the Niger Delta people, it is imperative for us to remain as one, do the needful, support the process, a program that we all have seen results and have for once been applauded by all as sundry. Any attempt of any a form of rascality by any set of persons
Mm.
to do otherwise might not be of the best interest for the region and for the persons. I know for certain, in many quarters, we've already been hearing statements, we've been seeing actions, and I was very glad when I watched the program, the sister station, where she had to ask Chief Alaji, sorry, the question if all of this was for the contract, on the 30 contract. I'll make bold to say that Asari Dokuba has done his part, but does not have the capacity to hold this contract
Mm.
out for the Niger Delta people or for the Nigerian state as a whole.
All right, thank you very much. One more thing, Comrade Chuba, are you trying to insinuate that the Tantita group are on the right track, and then the Niger Delta people are okay with their operation?
Very clearly and very simple. The handwriting on the wall is very, very, very obvious. Cutting across all the states and the entire Nigerian nation, you realize that this is the first time a contract of this sort, of this magnitude, has been issued to a local, and there is peace from all quarters.
Mm.
The young men are all in line, and everybody is basking in the same with the same understanding and pressure to do the job.
Mm.
So I think any alteration might not speak well. So I think that if there was bad blood flowing amongst other people, it would have showed. But I think all the wallets are in line with the program, and I think the youths from the region are in line, the adults and the chiefs are all carried along. And I think it is one, it shows, it's a signal that everybody should applaud it, and it's not even arguable. Even the Nigerian state and the NMPCL itself or herself are completely applauding the process, and I think it is worthwhile for everyone to do.
All right, thank you very much, Comrade Chuba. That will be all for now. I want to say a big thank you to you for both honoring our invitation and for equally elucidating on these issues. Thank you very much for your time.
Always my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
That's the end of today's edition on Security Watch. You can join the conversation by following any of our social media handles on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube channel. Until I come your way again, I remain your host, Loretta Igbe, aka Isi Laura. Thank you for staying with us.